Now get eating. Eat it. Eat it.
The movie begins in 1930 at a small farmhouse in South Africa. An English widow gives birth to a boy named Peter Philip Kenneth, known as PK. He lives a simple, well-cared-for life with his mother and his nanny. PK's best friend is the nanny's child, Tonderai, and they do everything together. PK's mother educates both children at home as best as she can. Life is peaceful for PK until a mysterious illness kills all the farm cattle. His mother suffers a nervous breakdown and is advised to take complete rest. Consequently, young PK is sent to a boarding school while she recovers. Unfortunately, the only affordable boarding school is run by Afrikaners, Europeans who settled in South Africa in the 1680s, also known as white Africans. On his first day of school, PK attends a history lecture where the professor explains that the English fought the Afrikaners for control of the land and sent them to concentration camps. Over time, a conservative Afrikaner government came to power, leading to racial discrimination against both the English and the blacks. PK realizes he is the only English boy at the school, and the other students glare at him, silently blaming him for their ancestors' deaths. An older student named Jaapi Botha goes so far as to spit in PK's face. He and his friends corner PK in the bathroom one night, taunting him and calling him piss cop or pisshead.
You know what PK stands for? Piss cop.
They drag him into the shower and urinate on him. The other students do not intervene. Instead, they enjoy his humiliation. The extreme bullying causes PK to develop a habit of bedwetting from anxiety. One night, a guard informs PK that his mother has died.
Hey, your mother is dead.
He is taken back to the farmhouse for the funeral, where he reunites with his nanny and Tonderai. Having left when his mother became ill, PK feels extreme guilt over her death, often wondering if she would still be alive if he had stayed to care for her. Later, PK shares the bullying he endures at school with his nanny, who has always cared for him as her own and is the only family he has left. Following this, PK's nanny calls upon the greatest healer from her tribe, Dabula Manzi. To help him overcome his fears, Dabula Manzi performs a ritual that puts PK in a trance. Using his healing power, he helps PK release his deep-rooted fears and coping habits. PK is given a chicken, which he names Mother Courage, to guide him through his journey. She becomes his best friend during his childhood. With his only living relative being his grandfather in Congo, PK is sent back to boarding school. He takes Mother Courage with him, and she watches over him at night to protect him from bullies. A month later, news spreads that war has erupted in Europe. That night, PK and Mother Courage are abducted from their dormitory and brought to a hall. There, Botha stands in front and conducts a fake Nazi trial against them. He reveals his admiration for Hitler and his hatred for the English, blaming PK for the deaths of many Afrikaners during the war. PK stands in terror as Botha promises to punish him and all Englishmen. Shortly after, Botha orders the other students to hang Mother Courage. PK begs them not to harm her, but they ignore him. They hang her from the ceiling, and Botha kills her with a stone from a slingshot. Furious, PK lunges at Botha, knocking him backward onto a small flagpole that pierces his buttocks. The other students laugh as Botha writhes in pain. Humiliated, Botha orders PK to be hung upside down from the ceiling like Mother Courage.
Hang him up!
Hang him up!
The students chant to kill PK, provoking Botha further. He hits PK with a stone from his slingshot, knocking him out. Just then, a professor enters and sees the chaos. Botha approaches him, but the professor slaps him and calls him an idiot in front of everyone. Due to this incident, Botha is expelled from the school permanently. After losing his mother and his pet chicken, PK feels things can't get any worse. Then he finds out that his beloved nanny and Tonderai must return to their family, making him feel even more alone. Eventually, his grandfather comes back from the Congo and takes PK to live with him in Barberton. Unfortunately, they struggle to connect, so his grandfather introduces him to a friend, Karl Doc von Wallenstein. Known as Doc, he is a lonely German musician and amateur botanist who lost his family to the Nazis. PK's grandfather suggests that Doc mentor the boy and give him piano lessons. In return, PK will help Doc with his cactus garden. Doc agrees to mentor PK, having lost his grandson not long ago. Under Doc's guidance, PK becomes an excellent pianist. When World War II starts, Doc is imprisoned in Barberton Prison for not registering as an enemy alien. The prison commander, von Ziel, is an Afrikaner who respects German culture. Therefore, he allows Doc to maintain a cactus garden in the courtyard and a piano in his cell. Additionally, he grants PK unrestricted visitation rights. A few days later, Doc learns that PK is only achieving satisfactory marks at school and finds out that smart kids are bullied there. He believes this is why PK isn't trying hard in his studies. Doc then introduces PK to a colored prisoner named Gil Piet, who is skilled in boxing. Piet becomes PK's boxing coach, teaching him the mantra, first with the head, then with the heart, which stays with him for life.
First with the head, then the heart.
Meanwhile, PK continues his piano lessons and becomes a master at playing flawlessly. One day, Piet notices that Doc brings cacti in a bucket with roots wrapped in tobacco leaves. Although this is against the rules, Piet privately asks if he can keep the tobacco. Unfortunately, a sergeant overhears and brutally beats him with a baton. PK then cleverly suggests that Piet clear the bucket daily, allowing him to sneak in the tobacco undetected. The scene then shifts to 5 years later. PK continues to train diligently with Piet in prison and eventually wins the inter-prison boxing championship at age 12. Meanwhile, Doc's cactus garden thrives as he plants and fertilizes the cacti PK brings from Barberton. They also continue secretly supplying tobacco to Piet and other prisoners. PK, always kind and compassionate, becomes the unofficial letter writer for the inmates. Many prisoners begin calling PK the Rainmaker because he brings peace and treats everyone with kindness, regardless of their tribe. PK gradually becomes aware of the terrible conditions faced by black prisoners. The Afrikaner guards detain them in appalling conditions and frequently beat them. One day, Doc gives Piet a bucket filled with tobacco for himself and the other inmates. However, Sergeant Bormann spots Piet and calls him over. The guard humiliates him by dropping manure on his shoes and forcing him to eat it. Even though Piet could blame others, he kneels down and eats the manure while the other prisoners watch with pity. PK is heartbroken to see Piet, whom he loves and respects, treated so badly. After the guard leaves, Doc and PK rush to help Piet, and the other inmates sing to honor his bravery. Soon after, news breaks that the war is nearing its end. Doc happily tells Piet and PK, mentioning that he will finally return to Germany. However, PK feels sad, fearing he may never see Doc again. Shortly after, the commander asks Doc to organize a concert for the annual visit by the prison commissioner. Though hesitant at first, Doc agrees to Piet's request. The three of them plan the concert, with Doc playing the piano flawlessly. PK writes the lyrics and gathers 3 tribes of prisoners to sing in their native languages. The lyrics convey the feelings of the colored prisoners, subtly insulting the Afrikaner guards in languages they do not understand. On the night of the concert, PK, Doc, and the prisoners get ready for their performance. PK notices Piet's absence, but Doc assures him Piet will arrive soon. Meanwhile, Piet hurries to join the crowd, already late for the show. As he leaves his cell, he encounters Sergeant Bormann, who stops him and demands a translation of the song lyrics.
What are they singing?
The sergeant also blames him for initiating the concert and starts assaulting him. Tired of the abuse, Piet courageously translates the lyrics, which insult the guards as cowards. Furious, the sergeant brutally beats him while the unaware prisoners continue singing and enjoying the concert. Moments later, PK sees Sergeant Bormann near the fence behind the stage with blood-spattered clothes. Realizing something is wrong, PK rushes to investigate and finds Piet in the yard, close to death from the beating. With his last breath, Piet repeats the mantra,
"First with the head, then with the heart,"
and dies in PK's arms. As the war finally ends, Doc returns to Germany. PK remembers the loved ones he has lost and feels their absence deeply, as he is left alone once again. The story moves 6 years forward, with PK now 18 years old and attending a prestigious school where he excels in his studies. He has earned the headmaster's respect and a scholarship. His closest friend is Mori, who arranges his boxing matches. PK is set to compete in a championship, where he notices an Afrikaner girl cheering for him. Curious, he asks Mori to discover her identity. PK wins the match, impressing the crowd. Mori later reveals that the girl is Maria Moraes, the daughter of a prominent National Party official living in a boarding school. Despite Mori's cautions, PK sneaks out one night to meet Maria. She tells him that her father would never approve of her dating an English boy. Determined, PK decides to ask her father for permission himself. On another occasion, Mori takes PK to meet a boxing trainer named Mr. Grunewald to improve his skills. Although initially skeptical, Mr. Grunewald changes his mind after watching PK fight in the ring. He is impressed by PK's strength and skill. PK's performance, including an 8-punch combination, earns praise from both the trainer and his opponent. Mr. Grunewald agrees to discuss training PK further. Later, PK meets Maria's father, Professor Daniel Murray, to ask for permission to court his daughter. However, their conversation on tribal rights quickly turns into a heated debate. Mr. Murray rejects PK's liberal views and denies him permission to see Maria. After Mr. Grunewald proposes a fight between PK and black boxer Gideon Duma, PK and Mori refuse because of the illegality of mixed-race matches. As they leave, PK sees Maria waiting for him. Aware of her father's disapproval, they decide to date secretly. Later, the man who suggested the fight reveals himself as a former inmate of Barberton Prison with Piet. PK recognizes him, and Duma introduces himself. Meanwhile, Professor Moraes asks Colonel Brayton and his sergeant to spy on PK. Subsequently, PK travels to Alexandra for the boxing match against Duma, accompanied by Mori, Maria, and Mr. Grunewald. Although PK wins the fight, he and Duma become friends. PK later visits Duma in Alexandra, where they discuss the town's poor conditions and Duma's hopes for equality among South Africa's tribes. Duma suggests starting an English school for black people, which PK and Mori agree to after some hesitation. They get permission from the school headmaster to use a study room on Saturday nights for classes. On a Saturday night, Maria argues with her father, who disapproves of her relationship with PK because of his involvement in an integrated gym and his association with an anti-racist boxing coach. When her father threatens punishment, Maria runs away from home in anger. Meanwhile, people from Alexandra arrive for their English classes at the school, where Maria unexpectedly shows her support for PK. Unfortunately, the next day, they are informed that the police have ordered the Saturday night class to be closed. Following this, it is revealed that Japi Botha has become a sergeant and has been spying on Maria and PK. He enters PK's gym with his men and blames PK for getting him expelled from school. Violence erupts as the policemen start beating PK and anyone who tries to intervene, including Duma and Mr. Grunewald. Despite her father's objections, PK and Maria's relationship continues to flourish. One evening, Mori arranges for them to hold English classes in his uncle's church. Maria surprises them by bringing pencils for the students. Shortly after, the police raid the church, accusing them of desecration and racial mixing. In the chaos, the police start beating everyone, and tragically, Maria is struck with a baton and dies instantly.
Take your hands off me! PK! No!
Her sudden death deeply affects PK, and he considers leaving Africa to study at Oxford. However, Duma encourages him by showing how much learning English is helping the people in Alexandra. One night, Brayton and his police, including Japi Botha, arrive in Alexandra Township to raid a party in search of PK. The police enter with force, shooting and beating people indiscriminately. Just as Botha is about to shoot the boxing promoter, PK steps out of hiding and bravely demands that Botha stop the raid. They fight, and PK eventually knocks Botha out. When Botha wakes up and tries to shoot PK, Duma swiftly hits him in the head, knocking him out again. Ultimately, PK and Duma vow to keep fighting against racial injustice and continue their journey the next morning. The movie ends with PK reflecting on the advice he's received from all the important figures in his life.